blackmail the population of Venezuela. Also, not to mention the economic sanctions that the U.S. imposed on Venezuela prior to the coup. So that's what they're. See, that's the part. That's the part they tell you. This is the part they don't leave. They leave out. And here's what Bernie said: the Maduro government has waged a violent crackdown on Venezuelan civil society. So let's just stop there. Why is he saying that?
Because he's wishy-washy as hell right now.
What the fuck? Why is he wishy-washy? What the fuck is he wishy-washy about? He's fucking 80 years old. What do you give a fuck still for? That's what this drives me nuts. Like, he doesn't give himself the freedom to tell the fucking truth all the time. It drives me nuts. You're fucking 80 years old. They already cheated you in public. You motherfucker. Tell the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is this? Doesn't help anybody.
You responded to him, didn't you, Mike?
I did, because because there's two fallacies there. I mean, one is that the violent
Bernie Sanders is not even perfect on Venezuela.
Far from perfect. Bernie Sanders repeats the bullshit propaganda before he says, even though we shouldn't, Maduro's a bad guy and all the fuck off. Everybody's telling me the leader of the United States is the worst guy in the world. He's a madman. You can't let him near the nuclear button. He's a racist, a nationalist. He's a traitor to our country. When is somebody going to invade our country, Bernie?
Yeah, so Bernie, whether it's about BDS or about Venezuela.
He's wrong on BDS,
right,
Bernie.
He'll give that stipulation, that proviso, yeah, I don't support this, I don't support that, I don't support Maduro, I don't support, because he's too worried, I guess, about the more videos of him going to Russia.
Because he's got shitty advisors. Bernie Sanders has got to have the dumbest advisors in the world. Those guys suck. I'm sorry, they suck.
It's like he has Howard Schultz as his advisor.
Honestly, he would do better with no advisors. You guys are advising him to fucking say that bullshit about Venezuela, to be supportive of to say that stuff he's saying about BDS. That's your advice to him. You guys suck. Bernie needs to get some maybe more out of touch older white guys surrounding him. Jesus H. Christ, are those guys stupid?
Wow, you just love him so much you can't criticize him. Oh wait, you just did.
Oh wait, I just did.
See, I mean, but that's the thing. I support Bernie, and he may run again. We were thinking he might have announced by the time we did the show, but he has not announced, as far as I know. But that he has real flaws.
He has real flaws,
especially
Bernie
when it comes
Sanders.
to foreign policy.
Fucking huge flaws. Believe me, he's got big flaws, Bernie Sanders. He's better than everyone else, just about. But that tells you how shitty everything is.
What's his position on India?
How does Bernie feel about Modi? I want to know how Bernie feels about Modi. How many times has he been asked that question? I'm going to guess 0.
If I don't know where he stands on Hindu nationalism, not only do I not trust him, but that's really a failing of the American mainstream media, that they're not asking those questions of Bernie, because I want to know.
I want to know
all my candidates. When Kristen Gillibrand announced, I'm sure that was the first question they asked her, right?
Yeah.
If Bernie runs as a Democrat in 2020 and the Democrats find a way to cheat him again, which they're already trying, they just passed a law or a rule in the DNC saying if you're not a member in good standing of the Democratic Party, you're not allowed to run. The DNC will decide who's a real Democrat and who's not. That was a direct threat at Bernie Sanders, right, to keep him in line. So if you start going against the party too hard, it's telling us that we rigged the primary against you, and we're not going to let you run as a Democrat in 2020. That's what that threat is. So they might not even let Bernie run in 2020 as a Democrat, which that would be hilarious to see happen, because Bernie's putting all his eggs in the basket of he is going to run as a Democrat in 2020, and he thinks he's going to win. And what I say, if they find a way to cheat you again and you don't win, what have you built over these last 4 years? Nothing. You haven't built a goddamn thing. Nothing has been built. You wasted your moment, your opportunity to really, again.
Bernie's falling in line, and because he's putting all his eggs in the I'm running in 2020 basket. And, my question to Bernie is now, if they cheat you again, which they will, and you don't win, what have you built over these last 4 years? Nothing, right? So Bernie says, come out and you got to vote and take over the party. We did come out in California and we did vote our delegates into the party, and overwhelmingly progressives have more progressive delegates, Bernie delegates, than centrist delegates. We went to the convention. Well, it turns out they have cheating rules too, just like at the national level they have super delegates. They have super delegates at the state level. They cheated and they won, and now a pharmaceutical lobbyist is the chairman of the Democratic Party in California. So this is the party, that's the bluest of blue states. And right now we're sending back to Washington, D.C., Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and Dianne Feinstein from the bluest of blue states. So if this is the party Bernie thinks he's taking over, I would like the evidence for it. And I would want to know what he thinks that he's going to accomplish. If he doesn't win the presidency in 2020, what has he built? Instead of him and Tulsi Gabbard and Nina Turner and Ocasio starting a third party, because that's how you start a third party. You think he would have got those 27,000 votes in Wisconsin? Do you think there would have been 7 million fewer votes for the Democratic nominee this year than there was for Barack Obama in 2008? Do you think there would have been 7 million fewer votes for that guy? Or do you think he would have crushed in the biggest landslide in electoral history?
Remember the rural white vote? The Hillary people.
Oh, the rural whites are going to come out for Hillary. The rural whites. Remember, that's why they front-loaded all those southern states.
That Sanders took during the primaries.
Mm-hmm.
He was criticized for that. Well, that's not practical. You know, that doesn't mean anything.
You need some big shots from the regular party that's corrupted to start a third party. That's how you, and so that's why they go, oh, that's why the Greens have had such a hard time taking off, because they haven't had any big time politicians who have celebrity like Bernie.
And the problem is now that that even our biggest progressive leaders are now sheep herding people into the Democratic Party, which is a counter-revolutionary party. You can't have a revolution happen inside of a counter-revolutionary party.
There's any updates on Bernie coming? We already talked about this earlier in the show. He is not coming on. He's ducking the show. Now when I get emails from his campaign asking for money, I'll say I give him another 27 after he comes on. Thank you. I think he's probably not going to come on our show because I think it's because we have a Hispanic on our show. That's what I'm telling people.
It's because of me. It's because of me.
I think that's what it is. I don't know. I'm actually, it's either way, it's very revealing, right? So he's sending a message both ways.
John Heinrich, something I've been thinking lately, and how could Bernie could still very well be the next FDR. While it appears he's slowly being co-opted by the Dems establishment, FDR was considered a member of the elite in his time.
Yes,
He's still
Bernie stopped talking about that stuff, and he started stumping for Hillary Clinton. He couldn't fill a fucking phone booth. No one showed up to hear him talk about that shit. Nobody. And that's another thing that never got press. That when Bernie stopped stumping for himself and started stumping for Hillary, his crowds went away. No one ever reported that. So
Let me just finish this little thought that they have.
Okay.
Ben Norton says, this is a very bad statement talking about Bernie.
Yeah.
So you go, oh, well, Bernie doesn't know that. What? Does Bernie have a bunch of 8th graders working for him? Everybody who works for him's got gray hair or is bald. They're old. They know stuff. They've been around. They've been reading. You're not informing Bernie, or you're just going to just do bullshit? The whole reason why people like Bernie is because he's not a bullshitter. And so now this is bullshit. This is bullshit. And this is his staff telling him to do bullshit. It doesn't bring me any joy. So now Amy Klobuchar has, there's a lot of people, Bernie just announced, so you know everything there is to know about Bernie at this show, so I don't need to go over it with you, but he gave a 10-minute speech where he announced, and it was chock full of policy, nothing but policy ideas, the concrete ways to help your life. And you know what those are: free college, living wage, Medicare for all, break up the banks. He has great concrete domestic policies. So I'm going to show you what corporatists are doing they're trying to, hey, I'm not against Bernie. I'm not against Medicare for all. So this is from that Pod Save America. Pod Save America, very popular podcast. And then it became a show on HBO.
Tuesday and really hoping for a positive result.
Has Bernie come out in favor of this?
Our Revolution National has endorsed it.
Oh, good.
And it's the only city-level measure that they've endorsed in the country. Bernie has seen it. He's liked it. He hasn't officially endorsed. But
you never know.
And that's kind of ironic that he slipped and said that. It's kind of a Freudian slip. Well, maybe the resistance is, the resistance. Who is this guy? Oh, so you want to start a third party? It sounds great. What are you doing? He sounds like those people who were dismissing him during the 2016 primary. That's what he sounds like. Oh, yeah, you want to have, sure, everybody wants to have free things under the Christmas tree. You want to have Medicare for all and education and free stuff. That's what he sounds like, right? And those are the questions I want to ask Bernie, which is why he won't come on the show. So they're ducking our show officially. They won't come on. Every time I talk to Bernie's press secretary, Josh says, I have to look at the schedule. So it's insulting to even talk to them right now. He goes, I have to look at the schedule. He's doing every neoliberal show in the world. Do you really think you can affect the Democratic Party more from the inside? Or if you had a third party that was polling at 10% or 15%, if Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country, now you've got real power.
This is the kind of shit I can't take from Bernie. Like, Bernie, stop doing that shit. And if it's your staff, tell them to cut it out. What are you fucking doing? You don't have to do that shit. People love you. You don't have to play their stupid game, pretend that America's something it isn't.
They could have picked Bernie as vice president, and then they would have won. We wouldn't have Trump. So now if Bernie was a third party and he had 10 or 15% polling numbers, A, he gets in the debates, and B, now the Democrats can't ignore us. It's funny he uses the term the resistance. Will I succeed in transforming the Democratic Party? Maybe the resistance, meaning the hashtag the resistance. What are they really resisting? They're not resisting Trump. They're resisting progressivism. That's what they're resisting.
Joining late, but everyone is telling us to donate to Bernie's potential 2020 campaign. But how do we know the DNC won't cheat?
You don't.
You don't.
You don't. That's the thing. I keep getting these things to... I'm not fucking donating. Yeah. I'm not doing it. I'm not donating. Nope.
Sorry.
I
can't do it.
The problem is we are not a parliamentary system of government. And that's not to say.
Bernie is a sitting senator who runs as an independent every time. And he's saying, nope, can't do it. What I am trying. What does this Bernie know that other Bernie didn't know in 1993 or whenever that videotape was?
Now, where we are with the great danger of Donald Trump and the billionaire class and the reactionary agenda they are up against, I am right now trying.
That's the question. That's not a secret. What I want to ask Bernie Sanders, that's not a secret. And they won't come on the show. And they're doing it in one of the most insulting ways possible, is telling us the same excuse every time. I have to look at his schedule. Like you know,
even Bernie Sanders, right? We've been trying to get Bernie Sanders on the show. And, you know, his campaign, his guests got their head up their ass. Like they did the first. You remember how long it took Bernie Sanders to come on the Young Turks because they didn't get it because there are a bunch of 60-year-old white guys surrounding him who have no idea how new media works, and they can't wait to go on Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow, who shit on them every frickin' time.
I know, but he's not answering those questions. He's not coming on this show. He'll go on your show if you voted for Hillary. Right. So if you look at the shows that he does on the left, they're all people who voted for Hillary. He goes on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher, who on the regular trashes progressivism and calls it every horrible thing that a corporatist calls progressives. And he goes on his show. But here I am, a guy who went to Iowa to cover his campaign, who went to Las Vegas to cover the debacle that was that primary. There's a guy who traveled all over this state when he was here covering him. And he won't come on our show. Why? Because he's afraid to answer questions, and then he has his press handler Josh literally lies to us. I'll say, hey, I thought you were going to get us a date with Bernie. He goes, I have to check his schedule. You have a schedule in your hand, Josh, and so now you're just a fucking liar like all the rest of them. You're just a bullshitting liar.
And then, but someone who actually supports them is going to help to get their message out. They shun them. I hope you effing lose again. That's what I think.
I'd also say that the progressive movement has its greatest audience on platforms like this one.
Of course, but they're so stupid, right? Bernie's advisors are 60-year-old frickin' white guys who are in a bubble. Look how long it took them to get here. They let the Democratic National Committee completely rig the system, and they didn't blow a fire alarm. And they're still not talking about it, and the system's still rigged, and you're doing jack about it.
That you're a bullshitting liar to a progressive show.
And here's why he won't come on our show, so he's not coming. And I talked to Jane Sanders, and she's sympathetic. And I yelled at his press guy, Josh. And I'm sure it's not his call. I'm sure it's ultimately Bernie's call. So it's disappointing to say the least. Biggest, most vocal supporter, certainly this show. But we didn't vote for Hillary. So, but if we would have voted for Hillary, Bernie, if you voted for Hillary, Bernie will do your show. Bill Maher can't get enough of it. Go on Chris Hayes, who wagged his finger, who wouldn't cover Bernie, wagged his finger at an actress, and then did full shows with Trump's empty podium. Bernie will go on that guy's show. Isn't that gross? That's gross to me.
Tim Kavanaugh, who got cheated, he won. He beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and they cheated him. They cheated him. And if Bernie wins, they will cheat Bernie. Believe me. This idea that the establishment is just going to go, well, he won fair and square, so we have to let him be president, is never going to happen. They're going to fight that guy every dirty trick way possible. They're already doing it. They already passed a rule at the DNC that said if Tom Perez says Bernie's not a Democrat, he's not a Democrat and in good standing, and he can't run in the Democratic Party. I'll bet you that's the move they're going to pull. I'll bet you anything that's the move they pull. And then Bernie has spent the last 4 years not doing anything to build up a third party. They just disqualified him from running as a Democrat, and now he's fucked. That is one scenario that is very possible. Do you guys agree that's possible?
So El Bernath wants to know, Kyle says if Bernie runs, he has his vote. Do you agree?
Do I agree that Bernie has my vote if he decides to run?
Yeah.
My first choice is Tulsi Gabbard. My second choice is Bernie Sanders. I would love a Tulsi Bernie ticket.
That would be
yeah. So Tulsi,
amazing.
And the reason why is that Tulsi has shown more courage to stand up to the establishment than I've seen out of Bernie, especially when it comes to foreign policy. And when Bernie said he was calling for a revolution, he wasn't being truthful. That was just a gimmick. He's not being truthful. He won't come on this show and talk about it. Bernie won't even come on the show. He'll do any interview with anybody if you said you voted for Hillary. But if you didn't, Bernie won't come near you. That's the opposite of political courage. You know, when he went from filling stadiums, when he decided to back Hillary Clinton, you know, he couldn't fill a gymnasium after that. That's a fact. What do these people think they're doing? And to reform the Democratic Party, that's called incrementalism. We don't have time for incrementalism. Bernie Sanders started every speech in 2016 by saying, sounds like you're ready for a revolution. Mm-hmm. And then he turns around and starts sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party, which does stuff like this. So when he said, are you ready for a revolution, it doesn't sound that it was intellectually honest. It sounded like that was just a line now to get a rise out of people at a rally. Because now he's sheepdogging people into a party that's cheating progressives at every turn. They're cheating. They just smeared and slimed Cynthia Nixon. We can go over it how many times the person, Jaffe, who ran against Pelosi, they screwed him over. They're screwing people over in Texas. Everywhere. The party is not letting this happen. I'll ask you one more time. Why do you think Bernie's doing this? I mean, you don't have to answer. We can cut it out.
No, I just, you know, he has a portrait of Eugene Debs in his office.
Yes, that's right. I was in his office. I saw it.
Jimmy, I don't know.
I wish I knew too, and I wish he would come on the show so I could ask him that question, but they're afraid of me asking that question, so he won't come on the show. They talk to me on the phone and say, sure, we're going to get him on the show, and then they never get him on the show, so they're just jagging us around. Isn't it funny that he's supposed to be the leading progressive, and he doesn't come on a progressive show like this? Like, is there another show more progressive than this that you know of?
Oh, no. I almost wish if he was going to run as a Democrat that he wouldn't run. You know?
So I think the only way to change, all the big changes have come from third parties. And, the fact that Bernie Sanders was publicly, transparently, and unbelievably grossly cheated in the 2016 election, and nothing's been done to fix that. Nothing. They had a go ahead.
Well, Bernie has been silent about the cheating against his own campaign in 2016.
I know.
And
yes.
In fact, to the degree he's talked about election rigging, he's repeating a lot of the canards about Russia.
Yeah, he's repeating a lot of the propaganda that we now know has just been originated from the Clinton campaign, and so he just goes along with that propaganda, and he won't call out the Democratic Party for cheating him, and not only cheating him, they cheated half the party. That's who he needs to speak up for, and he doesn't. That's weird, and I feel let down by him on that point. Don't you?
Yes, I do.
Bernie was asked about you and your race. What did he say?
He said something like, I don't know anything about Tim Canova.
Why do you think
that was his line?
Why would he do that? He appointed you to a board in 2011, didn't he?
He did. I was appointed to an advisory committee on reforming the Federal Reserve. So he knows who I am, and he endorsed me in 2016. Look, his endorsement kind of went cold at the.
I certainly didn't vote for the Democrat. I was a Bernie supporter who ended up supporting the Green Party. I voted for Jill Stein because
So did I.
I could not support warmongers anymore. That's just how I am.
He looked me right in the eye, and this was way before, and he said, "Oh no, absolutely not. I will endorse the Democratic nominee."
Yeah,
And so when I walked out of the building that day knowing, I said, I'm not endorsing Bernie Sanders because Bernie's going to get wasted out of this thing, and then he's going to tell all his people to vote for Hillary. And that's what I believe won the election for Trump. I think that many of Bernie's people sat it out.
Said about Bernie, am I missing something?
Yeah.
I don't see how I can vote for bombing people anymore. So I think that pretty much rules out Bernie.
Well, Bernie is actually doing. He did make some good statements about what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the thing. He's better. So are we going to get sucked in, Jimmy?
I think Bernie made one of those Faustian bargains that I get to say whatever I want about domestic policy if I go along with your foreign policy of war. So you're saying you're not, even though you were a canvasser last time for Bernie Sanders, you're not going to work for him the next time if he runs as a Democrat. Not only that, but you won't vote for him?
What kind of policy, what kind of position can he take? Say he took a position, I suppose, if it was that of Ralph Nader's, right, within the Democratic Party, how far can one person advance that position even if he did get the nomination? What do you think?
What do I think?
I'm throwing it back at you, Jimmy, because
people know what I think.
Yeah. So you would not support Bernie as a Democrat?
You know what? I hadn't thought about it until we started talking about if I would support. I just always thought I would. And then you're saying all this stuff about foreign policy, and it's making me rethink.
It's a trap.
How does it happen that Mr. Trump shows admiration for a leader who's trying to undermine democracies all around the world? What the fuck, Bernie? What is that shit? It's just, I'm so fucking sick of this.